Hey guys, once again, welcome back. Uh, Hello to everybody in the chat. Hopefully, you all can hear me. Okay, yeah, let's get started. So, today we'll be doing two structures, which is Karakan and Kalspad. Yeah, thanks a lot, Deepak Kore, for those kind words. Anyways, so here first we'll do a couple of positions and then we'll get started with the with the game. So now here, can anybody tell me what they would do in this position as white? How would you try to exploit? What are your main goals and ideas? Like, I've highlighted some ideas here on top. What white should be looking for, what black should be looking for. So basically, Karlsbad Karukan. What I will be showing you is not exactly it cannot be like the structures are almost interrelated. They can come through different openings also. For example, you see this is mainly a Karukan structure, as you can say. Now there are a few things that have happened. That black has played b5 earlier, like b3, b into c4. Some openings have happened here. um, as you can see, white's hotspot is like he can try to take control of the e5 c5 outposts. Black tries to take control of the d5 square, and thus he tried to play something like b5 to get rid of the c4 pawn and get the d5 square. Now all that has gone through. We have a small position here. I have a small exercise for you before we get started. What do you think white should do here in this position and get something going? How should he get his play going in this game is what hello everybody, good to see you in the chat. Hello Balankar, hello Freeps, hello Ramakrishna, hello Ashish, hello RK, and hello Srinivaslu. So now my focus is like we have some pieces aiming at the king. Maybe you have your rooks out. What do you think white should play in this position? Like, do you think knight into f6 exchanging the knights? Um, do you think we should take over the outpost with knight e5? Or do we have something here better than that? Yes, okay. See, one thing I would like to tell you guys, I understand that you'll find moves, but it would be preferable if you're mention what is your idea, or like at least a couple of moves, like in that regard. Because see, if you just mention one move, that is uh, like that is not very ideal. Like if you're planning something like d5, Ramakrishna, it would be better if you could tell me like what your idea is, what you're opening up, or something like that, because that will help you also in the game, to get to know what exactly you're doing and how you're helping your own position. Why is it urgent to do d5, or why don't you think like knight e5? What about knight into f6, exchanging the knights? Isn't that a good thing to do? We are trying to discuss that, and that's like, if it be preferable next time, like if you give me a little bit more, a couple of moves at least, however much you can, more than one move. So since I've highlighted some plans here, I would like to explain you which plans can be played out here in this particular position. A D file, opening up the D file. See, that's exactly where we are not trying to only open up the D file. You should try to understand why you're doing D5, because your pieces are aiming straight at the king and you're trying to use your tactical motives to, yeah, to exchange on f6 and try to use your tactical motives also to supplement your plan. That is opening up your bishop. Your rook is here straight aiming at that e7 bishop, and you can try to benefit from that with something like a d5 in this position. Now coming to knight into f6 here, right? Knight into f6 would be not such a great idea in this position, because I don't think it's helping us. Now bishop into f6, his bishop is aiming nicely here. uh, Now he has a couple of weak pawns, we would say. A7, c6, they are slightly weak, but which pieces can actually exploit them at the moment? Not many pieces can actually exploit it. So knight into f6 is not really going to like get you into a minus position, but you should know which are the common ideas that black have, and knight into f6 is helping black's ideas. For example, he plays c5, he tries to open up, he gets rid of his weaknesses, and then you have a c4 as a weak point here in this position. You now cannot play something like d5 either, because bishop into c3 If you look into c3, c into d5, and basically that is just lost for us, because we might also go on to lose the c4 pawn on top of this. And if you try your tactical resources like d6, still we end up losing one pawn in the process. So now d5 is not really working. So if you think of those weak spots and weaknesses, instead of exchanging, maybe a move like knight e5 will be better, because you can try to keep pressure here. Or let's say you know the idea, you know that c5 is a potential plan, you can try to prevent it. You can try to prevent it sometimes with c5. That's why I highlighted that idea also in one of the plans. But the problem is that c5 here doesn't really help us that much again, because you know the deal, you know the drill here. The bishop on the dark squares, his bishop is on the dark squares, you're putting your pawns on dark squares, not a really good idea. So maybe if your bishop was on d6, it would have been okay, but still that takes some time, right? So in this position, that idea would not work. Your goal is to figure out, or our goal is to figure out what, in which positions, which idea will work out well for us in this particular structures. Now, one thing that you mentioned that bishop b4, yes, that is a better move, because you're preventing c5, but doing it much more actively without losing too much control over the space, and you can also plant your bishop on c5. Now, if black tries to exchange with bishop e7, what can you do in this position? Can anybody tell me? Just exchange, okay, but what is the follow-up after that, after exchanging? One more important thing is, in Caro-Kann, you do have some space advantage. You have some important outposts, etc. to play for. But if you exchange too many things, then those outposts, they don't really work out. Like, you don't have the outpost. You can't take over the outpost with your rook, right? Rook e5. So if you're planning to exchange too many pieces, you should have a follow-up plan also, if possible. After queen into e7, can anybody tell me what you would do? a3, is it? See, a3 would be a good move if his bishop b4 was the only move in the position. Maybe you can improve your structure, prevent c5, connect your pawns, maybe then attack this pawns with something like this. Yeah, it would be good, but unfortunately it's not forced for him to take there. So he could play something like c5, and we know that this is a weakness for us. So a3 would be good, but unfortunately here again the same problem is he's able to get something like c5. We should understand what are black's key ideas, focus on them, and try to use them relevant to the structures. You will end up with a weak pawn on c4 if you play something like a3. Now bishop into e7 is okay in this position, queen into e7, but if you can, you should try to create more weaknesses, advance your pawns into better squares. That's why a move like d5 is a good idea here. Now let's say black is a little bit not very cautious. Okay, he plays something like queen. Okay, it doesn't really have a good way to do it. But one more thing that you should keep in mind, let's say he plays something like rook e8. Okay, what would you do in this position as white? You can do two things, d into e6, or three things in fact. D into c6. You can also think of pushing d6 in this. Now d into c6 wins a pawn, d into e6 ends up making black's position a little bit weak, because if you see d into e6, fe6, he has three weak pawns to play with, and d6 gets us a nail, like a small nail here. And you should try to figure out which one will be the best in this position, which one will give you the best chances. What do you think, people? Do you think d6? Do you think d into e6, or do you think d into c6? Yeah, exactly. Most of you all like have supported the move d6, and exactly that is right, because what has happened after d6, you get a strong pass pawn. There are not too many pieces left on the board. This is what you should understand. If the position is opening up, if you're playing something like d into e6, it's definitely a good idea to do d into e6 in this position. But if you had a bishop to supplement your plan, let's say a bishop on b2, bishop on d3, knight on somewhere in the center, then a move like d into e6 always makes sense, because you have so many pieces aiming at the king. Unfortunately here again you don't have those pieces. Now open files, if you do something like this, black can possibly take control of it. It's not like he's getting mated with rook d7. He still has a defense. So in that way, if you think of it, maybe something like d6 will give us always more chances, because we gain more space, restricted black's pieces Queen is badly placed, does not doing what he does best. And then you can facilitate your ideas. You can go and attack this, you can come and attack this, and you can supplement your other ideas, like, push your pawns with h4, h5, and try to generate an attack, because the center now is closed down. So d6 c5 is the best plan. D into c6 also is good, but again, the pawns are not very ideal, they are not connected. So even though it's an extra pawn, black can possibly, take control of it with queen c5 and try to win that pawn back. Sometimes he even tries like this with queen f6. If queen f6, then after gf6, rook c7, rook c8, you may end up losing that pawn back. So in this position, d6 would be better. If you did not have d6 and black plays this, now of course you know the simple decision in this position. We should play d into e6, because we cannot play d6, and we should try to exploit his weaknesses there. Now after f into e6, let's say opponent plays this. Of course, you can see that rook into d8 and you win the pawn. But if case you are not winning the pawn, then always a move like rook e3, keeping more pieces on the board, will be a better idea, because it will help you facilitate your attack. And too many exchanges can enter some drawn rook endgames, and that's not a good idea. So one of important plans is like black tries to exchange too many pieces, which can create problems for black later on, like especially the knight. He tries to get rid of it, because knight on e5 is very annoying. Sometimes here also he goes knight d7 and tries to get rid of it, because the knight on e5 once again is going to be annoying, and tries to get rid of it. Maybe this is what happened on the board. And then we have this tactical resource that people found, that is d5, which is immediately better for white, because we have a strong attack on that g7 pawn, and now we are able to utilize. We did not have this bishop, then that idea was not really that strong, as we see. Like if we trade off these bishops, then d5 doesn't really get us anything, it just exchanges too much material. But now since we have a mating attack there, black is basically immediately lost. Like after g6, can you find the tactical continuation here, guys? Or whatever you would do. I mean, I'm sure that d into e6 is falling, but then you can take a step back and see if you can do something even better. Can you? Can we finish the game immediately and make our opponent resign straight away? Okay. Queen h3, see, it doesn't really threaten anything. It doesn't really threaten anything immediately. So queen h3, okay, you have some ideas of queen h7, rook h3. Unfortunately, g3 pawn is along the way. So again, we should try to look at moves which are a little more direct in such positions. If you're winning a pawn, probably that's a good idea to take it, rather than complicate things with queen h3. But then you can think if you have a way to win a piece straight away, or not exactly win a piece straight away, that will nobody will tell you in the game. You can look for if there is something better. Now queen h3 is way too long. Like you're planning queen h6, maybe rook d4, like it's a little too long. So you should look for more simpler moves, and then maybe you can decide whether queen h3 is good enough there. I think here queen h3 is not really that great. d6 or queen d4. d6 is the better idea. Bishop into d6 followed by queen d4, a double attack, and immediately you win a piece straight away, which is immediately going to win the game also. So then you can use your tactical resources to figure out if there's something better. But if you don't have time, d into e6 is also going to win nevertheless, because finally you're a pawn up with so many things happening on the board. And then later you can think of your ideas of queen h3, queen h6, or queen d4, queen d8, whichever ideas work out best, and you can try to implement them on the board. Queen d4 also does the same, but I think it allows this move e5. It's a little annoying, like it's not extremely clear. Rook into e5 can allow this move bishop f6, after which you will have to again calculate a little more whether giving up the exchange and then utilizing your bishops will be winning. But again, that's unnecessary. Simple way is there: d6, queen d4, or d into e6, which is still winning. So you got the idea now. Most of the positions, even if you go from a different opening, Karukan structures, they can come from many different positions. It can come from slab, it can come from a symmetrical QGD, it can um, come from many different structures. The ideas stay the same, and that's why I will highlight some games to you. It doesn't have to be only Karukan, it can be from many different things. So let me just go and put the next game in the Okay, so here we are going to see first a Caro-Kann position. Okay, so e4, c6, d4, d5, knight c3, d4, knight e4, knight d7. Now the main lines are bishop f5, but knight d7 also is common. All we have to focus on white's main plans and black's main plans. Knight d7, white plays knight g5. Looks odd, but it's a line in theory. It tries to initiate a weakness with h6 if it's possible early, and if you play h6, you should be knowing what is the best move for white in such a position. Can anybody tell me what is the best move for white here? Yes, so most of you all are already aware of this tactical resource that you'll have. There are two ideas you should be looking for in such positions. One is knight into f7 and one is knight e6. Now knight into f7 tries to tactically finish your opponent, but it doesn't really work out very well because of the king takes f7. At least I cannot see an immediate win for white here. If we had a bishop on d3, maybe it would have been possible with queen h5 and we have a mate immediately. But unfortunately, we try queen h5, he has g6. We try bishop c4, he has e6. We try queen f3, he has knight f6, and then black is simply a piece up. So knight into f7 is not going to be working out well here because the piece sack is, we don't have enough pieces. We should not forget that. Okay, whenever you are going for sacrifices, when you're going for attacks, you should see how many pieces you have in the game to actually support your attack. Knight is not an f3. You're a king. Your pieces are sleeping still. Bishop is not going to come into the game yet. So probably you just don't have enough pieces to supplement your attack. If you don't have enough pieces, then maybe you should take the slower approach, which is knight e6. This is also a pattern you should be all aware of. F into e6, queen h5. The king is dominated straight away. g6 and queen g6 is a mate. And if black tries only move only resource, if he plays something like queen a5, which you should also look at. Okay, here somebody has already looked at it. Queen a5. We should also see which is the best move for white in this position also. Shall we play c3 and improve our pawn structure? What do you think? The c3 also okay. Like then we can later capture knight into f8, right? Of course not, because first of all, fe6 opens has opened up a square, and secondly, if you still go with queen h5, the queen is also covering the hy square. So there are two things that you have to be concerned of here. The queen is covering the hy square, and it has also opened up a king. So bishop d2 will be necessary here, attacking the queen, and then the queen has to go back to b6 by force, because if you play somewhere else, let's say coming towards the center, unfortunately comes into a fork and then we win the queen. So that is also not possible. The queen goes back here. Now we should first see, take a step back and again see if we can really use some tactical resources in this position too. And there is a tactical resource, but if not, you can capture on f8 and win that bishop, get a double bishop advantage, and still you're like having a decent position to play with. But here again, there is a tactical idea for white which is possible in this position. So can anybody tell me which tactical idea I'm referring to? White to play, like, can I ignore, like allow him to capture the knight? Is that a possibility? Just to develop one single piece into the game, I can do that in this position. Let him capture on fe6 and then maybe I can use something. Can anybody tell me if they get it? Did you get it, guys, what I'm talking about? If not, I'll show it to you. Another minute. What is your plan of playing bishop c4? Kailash, Kailas, I'll call you Kailas. Bishop d3 is the idea, which I will highlight to you why exactly bishop d3. But can you tell me why you played bishop c4? If I play f into e6, what is it that you wanted to do? You should try to think of it that way. Like, what is my next plan? Am I missing something? And then you can figure out which, like, first of all, did you figure out the tactical idea? This is why we solve tactics to know these patterns, right? I will show that variation that that is working out. And a move like bishop c4 does not work out too well. Does not work out too well, okay? Don't know if it really gives us enough. But after I capture f e6 and queen h5, now black can play something like g6 here. And if you play queen into g6, king d8, I mean, you may have some good compensation, but that is not a tactical idea. That is looking for compensation. The king is in the center. Maybe white is still having good play here. Can get his knight out. He can castle. Sorry, he can get his knight out. He can castle. He can still keep a good edge because black's pieces are like. Why is it not happening? Black's pieces are badly placed on the back rank here. So the move that white said with bishop f4 first is bad, like immediately, or you're saying later, then okay, but bishop d3 has a nice purpose here. Now that is what you should think of. The queen can actually be trapped on b6, but this idea is not to trap the king, this queen. This idea is to utilize a nice resource. Looking at all the 64 squares of the board, if I play g6, this time this bishop comes to the rescue because I capture with the bishop, and this time the finish comes in, which is bishop a5. A nice finish here which wins us the queen immediately. And that's why I wanted the bishop on d3 to take on g6 with a check and then play bishop at a5. That is the idea. So you can always add this. Of course, this is not always needed, but you can use your tactical resources in your openings also to supplement your plans. Like why are you not playing h6 there? You got the point. In Karukan, in these structures, there's also this long-term thing that I have already told you. Like h6 is not something that it's a typical mistake that you should not unnecessarily play if it's not needed. Like knight g5 was not threatening anything, so you should not play h6 very unnecessarily early in the game if it's creating weaknesses. It may be very detrimental to some plan later, and we have done some positions yesterday in a series where I've highlighted why exactly sometimes h6 is not good, why exactly sometimes g6 is good. That can take that plan away from you. So that's why knight g5 is played in this position. Not that it's the best move or something, but it has played. It's been played quite often. Black played knight f6, white played bishop d3, e6, knight on f3, bishop d6. He has delayed h6 for a long time because absolutely no idea. And now if he plays h6 also early here, right? Here there is an idea to actually play knight into e6. Now this is a line, but I'll show you what the idea of this is. If you play bishop g6 and king e7, the king is stuck in the center, which restricts the development of the bishop, and that restricts the development of the rook. So white is not getting anything immediately. He's not mating his opponent. He's not getting anything like finishing his opponent straight away. But even if you just go ahead and castle, if you align your rooks on e1, you can see that this king is having a difficulty running away from there, getting away from that e file. And whenever he tries to do something to release the tension, or let's say get his pieces going, he creates some weakness or the other. For example, if he does this knight e5 and basically knight f7 entering, it's a big problem for black to deal with. If he plays something like b6, he just created a weakness here. And when the moment I play rook e1 and the bishop goes here, you know that here the king is weak, the bishop is come out, but there is something going to happen here, and then you can use your tactical resources or simple moves also to help your plan. Like, can anybody tell me which move is there's a tactical resource here? NG5 is not a mistake; it is an opening line, but I mean there are many moves in that position. So NG5 is one of them. You can play bishop c4, you can play bishop d3 also in that position. Basically, one main plan of ng5 is to prevent exchanges of the pieces, which I'll show in a moment. But now, here in this position, can anybody find me the tactical solution or the simple plan? Well, we have one simple plan with knight h4, knight f5. Excellent. Because the king is not really running away, like I said earlier. It will have to take great trouble to get there, get out of there. The queen will have to move. After knight f5, again the king going back to d8. All the pieces are stuck there on that last rank. Not a good idea. So white has good play for his pieces. And the most important thing is his pieces are coming out pretty immediately. Bishop f4, queen f3, rook is just on its way towards the center. So it's not going to take too much time. And white has so many possibilities that he can execute. Black, well, basically struggling with his bad pieces here. And that's not really looking very great for him. But can anybody find me even better move in this position? When we're learning ideas, we'll try to also solve some tactics along the way. So rook into e6, queen e2. Like, okay, preferably you should tell me the entire variation. You must have figured it out. So if you can tell me the entire variation, that would be also great. If you already know it, because I should not go for something like rook into e6 without knowing that I'm getting a mate, because I'm a piece down, and after that I'll become a rook and piece down. And if the king escapes, then maybe I will not be getting anything there, just sacrificing rook and piece for nothing. Then we have the simple knight h4, bishop f4, which still gives us enough. Like we still can, like if I do bishop f4, I can easily supplement my idea of rook into e6 and queen e1. It's a mate straight away in the center, or queen e2, wherever it is. I can also play something like queen e2 directly and simply win that e6 pawn. There is no good way for black to defend it. He has just moved his bishop. So if I can do that, then it's okay. But then you found out the move, rook into e6, king d5, bishop f7. That is where I know that you are rushing. That is not a mate, RK. That is not a mate. The king has two squares. So you have to also go further. Yes, king d6, and that's a mate. Then you can think whether you can figure it out. Rook into e6, king into e6, queen e2 check. Sorry, queen e2 check is always better. Because you think that the rook can come in the long run, the queen can go here, then maybe queen e2 will always be better. If king comes here, we can cut him off further. If the king goes here, we can either deliver a mate here, we can deliver a mate here. It's probably going to get mated in a move or two. Now, if he goes with king d5 also, we can see that we can kick him away and do the same thing. The only thing left is to interfere with the knight, where queen into e5, and simply bishop f5, and the king is mated. So you can supplement your positional things that with a tactical idea. That's why we know that why exactly he doesn't play h6 this early. These things are the things that he's worried about. Knight into e6 and the king getting stuck there in the center, and that is the basis of one of white's plans here to play knight g5 early. Also, as I've highlighted earlier, exchanging pieces does help black. He likes to exchange pieces early in this game, and that's why knight g5 also, there's one more basis that he tries to prevent the exchanges. For example, we will probably see this in the later stages of the game. He played h6 here, and now knight into e6 is not really working out. Again, there's a little bit of Indian influence also here, but if you play knight into e6, f into e6, white does still maintain good compensation with bishop g6, but now there's a big difference. The king is slightly on the safer square, and his bishop is outside, so we cannot really get anything immediately. Queen into e6 and queen e7. So this exchange will probably not work out too well because his pieces are coming out. And here now white played knight e4, which is definitely a good move, but we'll see that. The other idea that white sometimes executes is knight h3, and the basis of this move is uh, that he wants to keep more pieces on the board to facilitate his attack. You know black's main ideas: c5, opening up with e5, etc. So either we look at keeping more pieces so that we can go for a strong attack, or sometimes we look to prevent black from getting c5, e5 if it's possible. Focus on your ideas. Let's say the h7 point, that will be one of your basis of ideas, how to get there, etc. Now let's say black had castled here. Okay, what is the immediate solution here, guys? Can you tell me? Black is castling early. He will possibly play e5 or c5, trying to open up the center pretty quickly here. So can anybody tell me what black has missed out on? If you play knight e5 this early, right, Ramakrishna, uh, then it's you who is missing out on something. But before we go to knight e5, let's find out what black has missed out on right away here. Again, these are common tactical ideas and patterns that you should know. You have probably solved them before. And if you haven't, you should try to solve more and more tactics. And relevant to this position, Karuka and Kalspat, we can see some tactics immediately happening. And yes, knight into e6 is the tactic. Again, you should always verify and go a step further and see if there is going to be any problem, because sometimes it's like a trap set up by black. Knight into e6 is definitely the move here, but sometimes you have to be concerned about whether he can play queen a5. Your idea is like, I'll first show the idea: f into e6, queen into e6, king moves somewhere, and then queen into d6. You ended up at 2 pawns up lead, like, because you captured f7 and e6, and then you won the bishop also. So bishop pair, 2 pawns advantage. So we don't have to worry too much about rook e8, because first of all, bishop is getting in there. And even if you have to move a king, it's still like, you can see, you can determine this like this. Black's pieces are out of the game. So even if you are behind in development a little bit here, our king is staying in the center, 2 pawns will be worth much more than that, because his pieces are just not there yet. He's missing a dark square bishop. His light square bishop is sitting on c8, rook on e8, queen on d8, and not really ideally placed. So he cannot really exploit this, let's say, a king in the center effectively. Now coming to uh, here, what I have to verify is, hello Siddhant. What I have to verify at second h7 is also something that we will come back to, but it's not working. Yeah, but we'll come back to that. Good point there. Who said it? Second h7. Deepak. Deepak, you said it second h7. So we will come back to that in a second. Okay. Knight into e6. The things that you should always look out for. What if he plays rook e8? You should always be on the lookout. Okay. I'm sure people have already looked at knight into d8 as a fork on the king. But in some other instance, if you had done it this way, then you would have got yourself in a very big problem here, because you have already only calculated f e6 and queen e6, and you're winning the piece. You have thought that, okay, his queen is out and my bishop is, I can go for this. But then you tend to forget, what happened after rook e8? Suddenly that's a big problem, because now you cannot win that piece. You're not attacking the queen anymore, and you have lost yourself a piece. So where exactly it works is also very important. Now similarly here also, after knight e6, you should first look out whether he has some resources. Queen a5 check, that should be done first. Okay, important point that sometimes we tend to completely forget. The queen comes under attack, we win the exchange. Good enough. What if he plays bishop b4 check? Now that's a difference, and this is the first thing you should have calculated and told me. Knight into e6, bishop b4 check, very important to see what you should continue here, because this does lead to some complications. And yeah, I mean, you have to play c3 here. You cannot play king f1, because you're keeping an attack on the bishop. And again, sometimes things like rook 8 could have been a problem, but here after f e6, what would you do in this position? That is also important. Casually, people sometimes go and capture queen into e6, king h8, and then they will capture fc into b4 and rook e8, and suddenly you have lost a queen straight away to that pin. So that is also important. Hello, Anurag. I think I've seen you somewhere, right? I think I saw you on Atul's channel before, if I'm not mistaken. But great to have you here. Queen into e6 would not be possible. All you capture is c4, end up a piece, not a piece up, a pawn up, and slightly bad structure, which is not very ideal. But finally, it's a pawn, and you have two bishops to play with. So that would be a focus. Your pawn up, his structure is also bad in that regard. There's one thing in Karukan also that people tend to do is try to take control of the d5 square. But here, even if we give away the d5 square control, we are a pawn up, we have the bishop pair, and he has a weak pawn there. Now imagine he had a pawn on f7, then that would have been a bad position. You don't want to simply weaken your structure like this. Okay, so this was a tactic that was coming in and helping our idea here. That's why black played h6 first, to try to get rid of that knight. White played knight e4, and we'll see the idea here. Knight into e4. Like I told you, black is very immediate to try to exchange pieces. And one more thing first, I will just highlight this point to you. Somebody said this is called the Greek gift, by the way, where you're looking for this. Knight into h7, bishop h7, king h7. Again, a tactical pattern with Greek gift. And queen h5. Many people tend to forget that there's knight on d7, which sometimes comes to the rescue. So where you should be alert for this? You should be alert if your opponent did not play h6, he has castle. I'll just show this, okay? He tries to play something like knight b6, or he plays something like c5. You can play knight into d into c5, and he plays knight into c5. Maybe there you can think of whether you can make that Greek gift work, because the knight is no longer coming here. Bishop h7, knight h7, knight g5, queen h4. queen h5, and then there's a Greek gift working for us because the knight has moved there. You can be very tricky, cautious. You can use this in your tactical patterns. You can use them in your game also. Since the knight is on d7, we cannot execute that. So here we would go for knight into e6. So after h6 comes knight e4, knight into e4. Immediately, you want to exchange. You don't want to waste time support like playing bishop c7 because eventually this knight needs to come out somewhere. So knight into e4 doesn't waste too much time. Queen c7 again cannot castle. And now you would say like, why not play knight f6? Okay, it's possible to play knight f6 also here, but black is just following a different idea in this position. Like after knight f6 and the queen comes back, let's say to e2, right? There is one thing that this knight doesn't immediately have a future plan. Like knight d5, he can take control with c4. So sometimes he feels like black sometimes feels like he plays this plan of playing queen c7 because of the ideas I've highlighted right away here on top here. c6 c5, e6 e5. With this, he tends to sometimes keeps two ideas alive in this position, which can be useful. Not that this is the best move in the position also, but tends to keep both those ideas alive. And after dc5, knight c5 can also be played out, activating the knight there in that position. White castled, and then black realized that he cannot castle. He cannot play c5, it's a little too early, and the king is in the center. Then he decided to play knight f6 and get rid of it. But this was a mistake because both these plans did not really work out well together. We'll see why. White could have also, created another problem here. So this was not played out in the game, but you should also know this idea. What else can White do besides just castling in this position? Can we try to benefit or make use of this Queen c7 move that he has played this early in the game? Like, can we do something else? No, definitely Siddhant. She's not a student. She's a coach herself. And yes, together we make up the trio. Anybody? Can you all tell me what plan we can follow in this position? Specifically, he has not castled, his king is in the center, and we can try to c4 c5 is a plan we can execute later also. That is good. You know the basic plans and ideas, but that we can execute even like 2 3 moves later in this position. This is like relevant only to particular position because he has not castled, he has not played knight f6. Which move should immediately come to your mind? No, we have castle, of course. He castled in the game, Ramakrishna. Uh, of course, we have castle later in the game. We have just castle in the next move. I'm asking about like what else can we do here because he has not castled and he has played queen c7. Uh, okay, so the coach is here and queen g4 is the move that we can play in this position because he has not castled and we can create a problem for him. So you should know this idea. This is played out in some openings also, like in French and all. French opening, this sometimes comes out early in those positions where you try to, if he castles, he will probably be resigning in a couple of moves because it's just not even having a defense. We have a mate straight away on g7 if he does this. King is completely out there. Don't even need to capture the exchange. Or you can also think of attacking, but h4, h5, which, okay, that's not relevant here. Bishop g6. And also knight f6. Can anybody tell me which move we should play here? We're getting so many tactics in these positions. Shall we move the queen or can we do better? Yes, bishop h7, mate in 2, of course. Again, king h7 and queen g7. Just clearance and a simple mate. Sure, must have solved. Most of you all must have solved this, or you haven't, then you should definitely solve all these mating patterns if you get hang of it. If you get a hold of some book, do those patterns. It will be very useful. Finally, we are trying to either mate the queen or king, right, to win the game. If your opponent doesn't resign, so Solving mating patterns is always a good idea. Queen g4 was the move because this basically forces black to play king f8. And this, after this, we are going into lines which are like engine lines and engine. Actually, Shimanov is black here. He had maybe prepared this. And the point is that he slightly displaces the queen's position, gets the king out of that center. And now his ideas of playing c5 and e5 are actually blooming there. Even if you castle, he can sometimes play c5 here early because his king is now actually kind of safe. It looks weird, and queen g4, you should know the idea. Then he can later play knight f6 also, and the queen has to go to some awkward squares like this. So although he has lost his castling chance, it sometimes helps black. White maybe was aware of it, just castled. And then black played knight f6 because he understands that c5 maybe now is a little too early. He plays knight f6. Uh, Queen h4. And why queen h4? Because if he castles again, small tactical resources, utilizing this to your benefit. So black played b6, delaying it. Now suppose he had played something like bishop e7 to support it and then go for castling. What are the ideas we should immediately look for in this position? No, we do tend to see such opening ideas everywhere, though. Like even in French, sometimes the pawn is sacrificed, sometimes the king defends it. What we are trying to understand is the idea of it. So I just explained to you why queen g4 was not the best move there, because it helps in black's main ideas. Even in this position, actually, knight f6 was a little bit of an inaccuracy because it helped along queen h4 and helped white's ideas. b6, bb7, and sometimes even black thinks of castling on the queen side. That was a better idea in this position for black. Okay, but fine, like knight f6, queen h4, and what if he does bishop e7 in this position? How do we continue? Things, many things have opened up for us, and we should try to see if we can exploit those particular things. Endgame, actually, Ramakrishna, depends on you. I don't know what you have done on endgame thus far. um, I've heard a lot about the Silman's Endgame series and Silman Endgame book. Sorry, like so I have not read it personally, but you can definitely look at that book. Explains everything in detail, probably. And if you want a manual like an encyclopedia, then you always can use Dorotsky's Endgame manual. Silman's Complete Endgame Course. There we go. Siddhant has mentioned it. Silman's Complete Endgame Course. That is a good book, I've heard. There are many books on endgames, but depending on you, like let's say for me, I have already done most of the endgames. So if I'm revising before a tournament, I tend to use this book, 100 Endgames You Must Know by Asus de la Villa. That book is excellent, in my opinion, for me. But if you're starting off, then maybe Silmet Endgame Course is a very nice book. Dorotsky's book is also nice, basically like an encyclopedia, a library of everything. Yeah, knight e5, exactly, very nice. You can take control of the most important things that he has let go. Either it could be knight e5, it could be bishop f4, it could be c4, c5, but knight e5 is what he has let go, and that we can immediately capitalize. It's the best move in the position. And can anybody tell me why bishop f4 looks excellent but is a bad move here? Anybody? Black to play, what would you do in this position? White is looking for an attack, and black is looking to neutralize the attack. We clearly can see where black pieces are at the moment, and we clearly see white pieces are going to be at the moment. So, middle game principles, like I will think about it and see which book I can recommend to you. I will put it in the description also. Endgame, of course, we may do an endgame series, guys. So that time we'll definitely put it out. Here we don't see the sense of putting middle game in the middle game series, like about endgames, but yes, I will also some like in some of one of my video, I will make a video on which books I have used or which books were very dear to me in my development. So we'll do a small video on that too. No, this is black to play, Doi. So maybe we should Of course, the queen is under attack, but it is black to play. I would clearly not castle and give up the queen here. I'm sure nobody should be doing this in their own games also. Can we find what black should play in this position? Oh, knight d5. Very nice. People are finding the best moves here, and that's quite nice. This is what we have to understand. I told you, black tries to neutralize by exchanging too many pieces. So, tactical resources sometimes can be very useful to do it. And knight g5 is a good way to do it because knight d5, sorry, not knight g5, is a good way to do it because you're attacking the queen and the bishop. And then after bishop h4, it's important that your knight is also attacking the bishop, by the way. Now, is black is the position equal and is black already better? Black is winning, Siddhant? Absolutely not. The material is equal, and it is finally white who still has the lead in development, in space. He has everything better for him. So we cannot say like black is better here, clearly, right? Of course, black has though neutralized the most important pieces, which will be useful for his attack. For example, the bishop on f4 and the queen, of course, the major piece, would have been really useful for the attack. So we have neutralized those pieces. That's why bishop f4 otherwise would have been an excellent move, but because of knight d5 is a bad choice here. Now, if you wanted to play that, what can you do as white to facilitate only the bishop f4 idea? We are only focused on bishop f4. Okay, knight e5 definitely we have seen. Only focused on this idea. Which move would you add there? As white here, which move would you play in between before we play bishop f4? No, actually, I don't know. There is no lag. This is in low latency mode, Siddhant. It was probably there a little earlier, but then I put it in low latency mode so that I'm more in touch with my chat. I think I should not have any lag. Yeah, c4 is the move that you can play to benefit your idea of bishop f4. Simple. Like that is one of our main ideas to try to gain space, prevent knight d5 from coming on the board, and get your pieces on bishop f4, etc. Again, not the most necessary. Knight e5 is good enough, but c4 also would have been uh, possible. Yeah, queen h4 and then b6, and white played bishop g5 using the tactical resources to now now it's time that black is probably has realized that black is not going to castle on this side. So he plays bishop. He's playing bishop b7 and looking to castle on the king side, where white utilizes all his ideas. So we'll see first, quickly, we'll see what he has played: bishop g5, bishop e7, and then he played bishop f4. Okay, this was not the best move in the position because see, the bishop was not under attack. Sorry, the bishop was not under attack because the rook is pinned here. So you don't need to move this bishop immediately, but white played bishop f4. What move should he have played? Again, can anybody tell me? It's the same thing we did earlier. The move that white should have played was c4. Again, focusing on the most important plans. Knight d5 is a problem. We play c4, but white played bishop f4 and allowed knight d5, which black forgot about. Black did not see it, but I think maybe he did not see it, or maybe he felt like he was not really good. I don't know exactly why exactly he did that, but knight d5 definitely would have been the better choice, easily. You're behind in development, you want to get rid of the most important attacking pieces, and then even though the structure is a little bit asymmetrical now, we have a slight difference here. 4 against, let's say, 2 on this side, and 4 against 2 on this side of the board. So slight difference on the board here in structure completely, but it's safe to say that both have their benefits. White has this and the e5 square, black has this and he has the d5 square at the moment. But the main important thing is you should not try to allow white to get too much with knight e5 and see. And if knight e5 is coming, then you should use some tactical resources to benefit his plan. For example, here I will show you the idea. f6 is the best move. If white takes knight into c6, then comes bishop d7, and the knight is a little bit vulnerable. Like it doesn't have a way back. All the squares are covered. So maybe in the process, black might end up winning his pawn back. Like the knight is not very well placed, and after something like this, either white will have to destroy structure or black will win up a pawn back somehow. But black missed out on that and he played queen d8. Now, what exactly, knight d5 was necessary. Now, what exactly do you think is the next step for us? Just try to utilize the most important things we have already got, which is knight d5. Put your knight out there. Black played bb7. Now comes the follow-up plan, like how to continue and place your pieces. Are we in a rush to finish our opponent? Are we worried about him castling on that side? Not really. What are black's main ideas? Something like c5 and e5. One is taken care of. Second idea is something like c5, which still may be a little bit of problem with bb5. But if we don't have a plan immediately, there is no need to rush. We can just get a pieces aligned. So what is the next move for black for white here in this position? Can anybody tell me? Rook at d1, and you can get your pieces aligned in the game. So basically you understood what has happened here. White has got the upper hand now completely because black is struggling with his pieces. White, this h6 move also is becoming a big issue for him because now, right, if the pawn was on h7, he could have maybe thought of castling also. After bishop g5, thought of playing something like g6. Looks horrible and looks bad, but he could have done that. Now if he castles on this side, we should know the simple thing, bishop into h6, and then we have probably a mate to follow, like with h7 weak, so weak there. We have some knight g4 things. Your tactical ideas, whatever you use, maybe a rook lift also, you have time for that, and a mate on h7 may soon follow in this position. So white is completely winning here. Black cannot do that. Now on a pawn on h7, maybe that would have not been possible, bishop into h6, and that's why you should not unnecessarily make a typical mistake like h6 early on unless it's necessary there. So now in this position, black played bishop d6 because he's struggling here. White just simply played rook f1. Put pressure here, and the game was basically, let's just say, immediately over. Like queen e7, and white found another beautiful move here, just simply like making it even more difficult for black. Like again, he's also aware, like you should also be aware of black's main ideas. Like let's say I play something like c3, which move should black play immediately in this position? He will look for playing knight d5. Either exchange one bishop, which will be annoying, or either exchange the queens. Take your pick. I want to exchange pieces is the main thing here. So white just played queen h3. He knows somewhere castling might come, and I can try to use that to my benefit. Like if I castle here, we have again a tactical resource, and again so many tactics in this game here. White to play. What is white's best continuation, guys? Can anybody tell me? Okay, knight g6 would have been good to keep the king in the center with king on e8. But again, if it's not necessary, if you have a simple edge, you can play simple chess also. There's no need to go into rushing. That's what I was highlighting before. No need to rush and always go for these difficult ideas where you know things can go wrong. But if you get the chance, if it's working out perfectly, then of course you should not wait too long. Here, can anybody tell me what is white's idea? Knight into f7 is also one possibility, but then you can see like whether we can go for uh, something simpler. And Siddhartha, no, I did not check anything. I did not see Nakamura's stream, so I don't know. I did not see the bonk cloud. Okay, knight f7. You're on the right path here, but knight f7 is not the best move because it could be also winning. Like knight f7 also could be winning actually. But even better is something like knight g6, which I will just like, it's a simple pattern that you should keep in mind. It makes it simple because you will win the pawn. You have won one pawn, you will win the bishop, then you have two bishop advantage, and you have a weak pawn on g6 also to worry about. For example, if he goes here, we can take rook d6 also and be winning here. Even if I get double pawns, still a pawn up in the center, still a weak pawn here. And if you play bishop d6 also, you're winning because then you can use your other tactical resources, and then the windmill can start. That's a windmill, so you can start that roaming around with that rook. That can also be possible. So you have a lot of tactical ideas also in your games. Also, when you're playing out the structures, you can try to use them to your benefit. Try to get them on the game in the game. Brown Cloud apparently is the best opening now. It's going to refute each and everything that we're looking at, guys. No, but okay, it's always better. Maybe these positions also could convert from Bonk Cloud, right? Maybe that's possible. Bishop c3, castle, and then c4. And we'll just see how white just finished it, put his pieces in the right spots, opening up knight g4 ideas. It just became too much for black to deal with. Black played g5, and then white had this finishing touch with bishop g5, at g5, queen h6. Black just resigned here because he realized this is a strong threat. The rook is joining in, and his pieces have not done the important thing that he needs to do. Either exchange pieces, exchange this light bishops. Imagine they were exchanged, then there would be no possible thing on h7, or get c5 and get some counterplay going. But everything went wrong for black here, and the game was just over. Knight g4, knight into g4, queen h7, and queen h8 is immediately a mate here. So it's just winning. So black just resigned on that move. Uh, queen h6 itself. Now let's go to the next game. And like, yeah, 1 minute. 1 minute, guys. Yeah. Let's go to the next game. And now here, like, let's see what black can also do in this positions. And this is a different structure, different like idea. E4, c6. We'll see the opening, just breeze through the opening. Knight g3, bishop here, knight f3, all common moves. Knight d7 to prevent knight e5 from coming on the board. Bishop d3. Now here you will say that white is willingly exchanging the bishops. But the point is that his bishop is anyways active on this diagonal, and we cannot really push him off there. Other moves that are played normally are h4, h5, fixing the structure, and then playing bishop d3. So there are different ways to play this, but white has played this idea bishop d3 early. Okay, we'll see how it went, and we are more focused on the ideas and positions. Like, he has played castle, so this h4 I was telling you is also going to be a common idea in these positions, where white tried to advance, gain some space there, exchange the bishops, and have that pawn on h5 instead of having it on h2. It could be useful in many positions, but that has different ideas altogether. Here we'll see how the game went, and we'll focus on the main ideas. White has put his bishop on b2 and c4. So we have seen that his idea is to take control of the d5 square. If possible, he should try to also restrict black from playing c5. And if you're black here in this position, you should also time your move c5 effectively and not get too crazy about, silly tactics which are possible. Knight c5, very nice. You found a nice pin here, but after queen c2, your knight has to unfortunately, retreat back. So that's a silly tactic and blocked your c5 idea. Probably not the best thing to do. Now, black played queen a5 in this position. He could also have done c5, but do you think c5 is a good idea in this position immediately? You should also see if you can improve even further. If white can like forcibly stop c5 from happening early in this game. If not, maybe you can go for some development and then later time c5 on the board. The things you have to worry about when black plays c5 early is what if he takes and gets d5. We know that d6 can be an annoying thing. What if he's able to utilize his pieces effectively with rook d1? You have not developed very well, right? Maybe you're giving him more space. So sometimes here you can delay c5, and that we see with queen a5 on the board. White played a3 to get b4 again. He's not going to get c5, but then we'll see a different plan altogether. Rook e1, bishop d3, queen d3, and b5. Now, what if white had done b4? Black goes back, let's say c7, and white plays rook e1. Okay, what are the possible plans that black can look at in this position? Can anybody tell me what they would do here, or what they should look at? I've highlighted some important plans again. I've highlighted this one. I've not highlighted this one, but what do you think black can do in such a position? We know the key things: bishops attack. You can exchange that bishop. Like, has put some pawns on a dark squares. Is d5 coming? These are things you should look at, and then you can tell me what black should do here. Yeah, it's definitely like, but these players also have studied the classical games, right? It's only to look at the ideas. It's not like you need to play like like, to play exactly like them, but we get a lot of ideas from them. What mistakes they have committed, how slow they played. Maybe we can do better. Of course, by using some engine help also for your openings, etc. But the main thing is that if you don't understand the ideas, right, then your like classical chess is dead, but you cannot really like, they at least understood the ideas and plans that they were executing. If you just follow engine and play, then you will not understand anything in chess. It's just become a mechanical game. Knowing the formulas, like, that's okay, but like executing them on the paper, that's the most important thing, right? So we're just trying to understand where exactly formulas can be executed well, learning from them. What are the possible formulas, or the possible patterns, tactics, positional plans, etc. We're just trying to learn them, execute rightly them on the game. Like somebody said a5, yes, of course, that's a formula you can try to exploit, because you know that if he plays b5, what will you do in this position? Immediately capitalize on the weaknesses that he has made, immediately capitalize on the things that we have learned, and not make a blunder in the process. What would you do in this position? C5, exactly. That's not a good idea, right? You can try to capitalize on the weakness. We know the important things. D5 is a weak square. You can try to take, and then you have the d5 beautiful square here available for you. Black is already completely better here, because isolated pawn. You know the main things like relevant to an isolated pawn, right? D5 square. White needs pieces for the attack. You know that you have not created unnecessary weaknesses, and you have all the necessary outposts. Your pieces are also well placed. Your pieces that developed. Your rook is also joining in. The queen has a safe haven here on b6. It's quite simple, right? Black is just simply better here already, because he has either pawn and he has no d5 break, no attack, no pieces, missing the last square bishop. Imagine you had a bishop on c8. Of course, you would not want to be here, because that bishop on d3 would have created mating possibilities on h7. That is not what you want. Now, here in this position, you are just simply better, because as little pawn, you have the strong outposts. There's nothing to worry about. And rook c1, are you concerned about rook c1? Are you going to be afraid of playing something like queen d6 now? No, because the exchanges are going to be useful. Like, we are happy. We are good to exchange the pieces, because as a little pawn, you can play queen d5 here. That's even better. But even if he exchanges the rooks, endgame is always better for as a little pawn. If you don't know this, then probably you may not be able to execute it on the game. That's why c5, like common like thing, c5. I, I don't know why you played c5. C5 is a bad move here. For first thing, like, we have seen this pattern. Suddenly, he's exploiting your pin there. Like if you play knight b6, queen e2, suddenly we are in some problems here. Now his bishop is active. He has pieces to supplement his ideas, and the pieces here don't look very great here with the bishop on e7. Whereas after cb5, we just simply get the d5 square. So these are the things we have to be concerned and looking out to. Now he played rook e1, bishop d3, and black played b5. And this is the sort of idea that we were looking at a moment ago, the first position that we saw. So we'll see how it went, okay? White played knight f5, tactical resource trying to exploit something here and improve his knight if black doesn't take it. The bishop here improved his knight to a better square. Again, doesn't want to go for too many exchanges. That's the main plan. And queen c2, bc4, now knight c4. Now exactly this move was not really that great. I would have preferred to play b into c4 here, keeping control of the squares. But white thought, okay, I will take advantage of the c6 square, and if you also try to do something like this, it has to be quick and fast. He should not be able to get c5. He played queen b5, he played b4 immediately. He should not be able to play c5, and you should be able to utilize that weakness to your benefit immediately. If it is a little slow, right, then it would have been better to take b into c4. So we'll just quickly see what he played h6 there, which was again unnecessary weaknesses, typical mistakes on the board. White played bishop c1, improving his bishop to the other side. Knight d5, bishop d2. Okay, bishop d2 was because he did not have a square, and now he'll be looking forward to knight a5 pretty soon here. h3, okay, h3 was again not needed. White could have played knight a5, but we'll see what he did. Black doesn't have any immediate plan, no immediate e5 c5, no exchanges happening. That's why white just played a flight square. Let's just say it that way. queen c4, exchanging the queens. Now again, was it necessary? Maybe not necessary, but white felt like, okay, he's able to immediately exploit this pawn on c6. That's why he went for queen c4, rook c4, followed up with rook c1, and black's pieces are struggling there, exchanging into the endgame. What could you have done better? You could have also done something else in this position, which is no worries, Kailash. So hope to see you next time. What would you do in this position? You can also try to do, maybe try to exchange the bishops. That could be an idea if that's possible. You could try to take knight e5 into account, try to gain more space. You can think of improving your knight's positioning if the bishop is getting in the way, if that was possible. These are the things. You can even put queen b3 and then double up and put pressure here, because black doesn't have any immediate plan that we are really worried about. If he plays rook b8, we can simply play rook c2, right? And then, am I right? No, that's the only thing you have to be concerned about, whether he has some small tactical resources. If you take care of that, that's all okay. Like if you play rook c2, of course, you're missing out on black's cheeky thing, like queen into a5, and suddenly you're losing the piece. So as long as you don't fall for such silly traps, then it's good. You can simply play queen a4, or you can play queen a2, take care of it, and then go with your idea. Now, if I'd seen it, I would have possibly played my queen somewhere else first only, because I don't want to get into this annoying pins and some silly ideas there, and try to improve my position. So basically, what first important in Karukan positions, like black has some ideas with b5, c4, where he tries to take over the d5 square. If he gets that square, then it's okay. Not that it always works out, but that is one important idea for black, if he can get control of the d5 square. If you feel like c5, e5 is also important ideas. If you feel like they are quite strong, depending on the position, you can also sometimes play c5 to take over and restrict his pieces, gain some space. But preferably, depends on the position, like you should not fall for such silly traps. And your bishop possibly doesn't belong on this diagonal if you're going to play c5. The bishop belongs outside here on f4. Another thing, if you're playing something like c5, preferably if you have a bishop on d3 for an attacking resource on the king side, that's even better in that position. So these are some important ideas that you should keep in mind. If possible, if c5 is becoming really annoying, you can try to prevent it either with c5, or sometimes even with b4, or sometimes with some tactical resources like knight f5, or something like some tactical resources also can be used. Let's go to the next game. We will not go through the entire game, but I will just show you what happened at the end. Okay, let's blitz through here. After queen c4, rook c1, knight e7, white kept shuffling around. Like this was like he just did not immediately go for a plan, but the moment he got it, he capitalized. Now his bishop is active, his knight is better placed, and then it becomes a job of entering. He has weak pawns, and he exploited it nicely in the end game, which we will not look at right now. We are focused more on the middle game plans. Thus, we'll move on to the next game. Now here we'll see a different opening completely, but it's coming into the similar structures. Okay, so d4, it starts with d4. Now that's what I was telling you. Even if players don't play Karokan, they can still look at it, because they get ideas, and maybe the position transposes, right? Intertransposing into the same structure, like g3, bishop g2, castle, knight f6. You have a completely different opening here, but eventually, what is the structure on the board? The bishop is on g2. This has come from a Catalan opening. The bishop is on g2, knight on e4. Again, the structure is the same that we see in the, let's put it in green. The structure is the same that we see in the Karukan positions. So there's only one difference, the g3 and the bishop on g2. In the Karukan, normally you have the bishop on d3. Sometimes black plays bishop f early, exchanges the bishops, but the positions are relative and nearly the same. Just the ideas sometimes change depending on the composition of pieces. Let's say you have a bishop, it will change. If you have a bishop off the board, his bishop is bad, it differs. Now, black played knight e4, and he played bishop e7, which is the first mistake. Now, why it is a mistake, can anybody tell me? Like, it's a simple thing. Hello, Manoj. Well, great that you're finding it simple. With them being useful and helpful to you, Rama. Can anybody tell me a simple reason why the bishop does not belong here, but rather here? Just thinking of your opponent's next move, you would know why it belongs on which diagonal. Nobody? Okay, I'll show it to you. The bishop is coming to f4 and capturing the b8 diagonal, right? That bishop is quite strong there. And it gets more control over squares. And e5 now is difficult to play. c5 also, with this bishop aiming straight on that diagonal, is a little difficult to play. So it would have been better to play bishop c7, keeping the option of maybe playing e5 later, not immediately, but maybe later, and also not allowing white to take control with bishop f4 in this position. So bishop e7, bishop f4, knight f6, exchanging, and then here we see this move c5. Now, why exactly c5? Because like I've told you, open positions, like normally you don't want to close down, don't want to give away important squares like knight d5. But a move like c5 here after knight e4 and bishop e4, like black is just struggling with his bishop here, and your main goal should be to keep that bishop inside. If after c5 your opponent plays bishop f6, what should you possibly play in this position? He is looking forward to e5. So if possible, you should avoid or prevent e5 from coming on the board at all. If you allow e5, then basically black has solved all his problem. His bishop will merrily come to h3 or b6 or wherever it's good for him, and his development is complete. So if you're playing something like c5, you're trying to restrict your opponent from getting those important squares and getting his pieces outside. You're rook on a8, bishop on c8, queen on d8. All the pieces are on the back foot here. You're trying to restrict him there. Otherwise, giving away control of the d5 square or not allowing black to open with c5 doesn't make sense, because we had nice bishops pointing straight away there on that diagonal. The only reason for c5 is you have to restrict him inside. So a move like bishop e5, very nice there, Ashank. You have to play a move like bishop e5, preventing him from getting e5, and the bishop on c8, rook on a8 are going to find it very difficult to come back into the game. All you did is restrict him. Other ideas, sometimes tactical ideas also, like rook e1 will be good, but here we see that there's a pawn hanging, so we cannot really execute those. The idea was, d into e5, and okay, here actually we have even back rank weakness. This back rank is weak, or else we could have I was looking at this idea if it was working, but okay, both these ideas are irrelevant because the d4 pawn is under attack. Bishop e5 is the best move. You restrict him inside there. Now in the game he played knight d5, keeping that knight on the board, and white just played bishop d6, because better than the bishop, it will be the knight there on d6. If he gets his knight there, that knight is an excellent stronghold there. Now black played b6 rightly, so he has to do something. He has to open up. So he played b6. White just tried to play queen a4 to restrict him there. And here black made another big mistake in this position, which is pushing b5. Doesn't look like a blunder or something, but this is a big blunder, because the bishop possibly doesn't have e5, doesn't have a6, doesn't have b7, has nothing now left. Rook also, along with it, it takes the rook also and keeps it inside, and the queen also is finding it difficult to come out now. That's a big problem. So in such positions, if you're playing this, like, you have to look for active play and keep the possibility of playing b into c5. You cannot just push b5 here and expect the position to work out. Like, basically black is looking to keep everything close. Fortress, we had seen an example yesterday. Too slow will not possibly work out. Have to keep an opening. You're already in a worse position. Keep that chance of at least opening up with bc5. Look forward to those exchange sacrifices. Look for counterplay. That is all you need to do here. Otherwise, after b5, we'll see how this position went. Okay, queen c2, a5, rook e1, bishop f8. All the pieces are still on the back foot. Knight d6 entered here. Rook b8, bishop e4. What is he doing? Creating weaknesses. No need to play this immediately, and like, there's no actually immediate reason. Creating weaknesses, and maybe sometimes queen d2 was played. You can shift the bishop and change the alignment of that queen and queen and bishop. This is what we have done even a few days, like 2 3 days back. I've shown you this idea where the bishop can be always better in a battery on the diagonal with the queen in front, and that's why unnecessarily I don't want to play something like h6. In this position, it's hard for black to make a decision, because even g6 is probably bad because his dark squares are still very weak and his bishop is on the light square. So possibly even this will be bad. So it's anyways a bad position, and this did not help him more than that. It's more than, it's like like there's a term called for it, like a tall pawn, because it's behind on d7. They're doing nothing, so it's basically like stuck there. Like, this is a pawn, but this is like a tall pawn because it's not coming in the game at all. All white did is like he took on d5, but you should also be on the lookout for these kind of ideas also, sometimes initiating more weaknesses. White finally took it, realizing that the knight is much better than the bishop, and it's a close position. Simple. C into d5, rook c1, and then slowly tried to improvise, open up, and took control everywhere with f5. Everything is under control here, and finally white went on to win because there's just too much control of the position, and the bishop could never be useful. Rook cannot really exchange itself, neither can it create those openings. That's why I said b6, you should have taken on c5 or kept that option. At least the rook could have utilized it somewhere. Here, white, if he plays a4, white will not push a3. He will just move something else. Plays a3, I'll play b3. Plays b3, I'll play a3. No opening. Everything is locked down, and my entire focus is right here, taking control of everything on this side of the board. Attacking the king, taking control of all the weak squares. Black is just completely struggling. White went on to win this, so we don't want to see after this. Let's move on to the next game. Again, we'll see a different opening, but converting into those same structures. This has come from slab. Yeah, white's knight is very powerful, Siddhan. You're right about that. G6, H3, bishop G7, bishop D3, castle, castle, E6. Black has played a very passive, slow opening, but it's an opening finally. It's played like this. Rook E8, bishop E2, knight D7, queen C2, B6, D1, e4, and finally d into e4, and finally we have that position on the board. Like, so what I'm saying is, like, even if you look at different games, if you look at games which are happening, you sometimes see this happening on the board. You can just try to relate to it. The structure is finally the same, so you can use those ideas whichever relevant in Karukan, and we'll see how black played in this game. Okay, black is Katakamsky, and the e4 break was a little premature by white, and black exploited it very nicely. E4 leads to more dynamic play, but D4 also is like a good opening. The main point is you come across many positions. Like if you play D4, you can face King's Indian, you can face D4 D5, you can place Nimzo Indian, Benoni, many positions, right? That is the better opening choice. Or even if you play E4, you come across many positions. It's better to play this in your early days at least. Uh, Openings where you will come across wide variety of positions, because you get to learn more chess, how to play different positions. If you play one g3, then you will come across very little kind of positions, and you will face less position. You will be exposed to less positions, and you'll face less structures. You play the Benoni, yes, that's okay, but still, I would suggest, like, if you're new, then you can try experimenting with some, like, playing some different openings, and that's just an opinion. You can play different openings so that you get across more structures, or you do this, look at games, all the games. Don't only look at Bonk Cloud. Yes, like, if you don't look at only Bonk Cloud, then it's okay. So look at other games also. Knight into e4, b into e4. Observe what they're doing. Try to guess what moves they're going to play. Like here in this position, let's look at it from black's perspective. Understanding what ideas are played out and why they're played out. Like here, white has complete control over everything now. Okay, he has this diagonal also under control. What are black's main ideas? E5 or c5. Both are not possible in this position, but black realizes that if he takes his time, then white can easily focus and put c5 on the board and create a problem for him, because we saw what happened in the previous game. So what do you think black did? Black went for something a little more aggressive. Can anybody tell me what black did in this position? He understands that c5 or something is needed in this position, and he understands that exchanging too much will not give him much, and he understands that c5 can come and potentially completely restrict his pieces. So at the right time, he found a nice aggressive solution to all his problems. What do you think that is? Yes, f5 is the move. Now this is a very weakening move, and you would not want to do it unnecessarily. But looking at the strong players, when they executed, why they executed, you automatically understand, okay, f5, yes, okay, maybe there is an actual cause. My pieces are restricted. I don't want to sit down here. I want to get c5 immediately, and I want to create possibilities fast. That is why this move, f5, is not a bad choice here, because you're getting something quickly. Bishop e2, and we have to also continue quickly. Okay, if you play f5 and play c5 and now play, okay, you will play queen e7. Okay, now if you play something weakening else here, or you play c into d4 early, you will create weaknesses, and that will not help us well. So let's see how Karkamsky played this. He played very nicely. B into c5. Again, capturing on b2, a common mistake. You're giving him control. What will you do once you give him control? You would want to exchange queens, right? Queen g7. If the queen is automatically improving to g7 after he captures on g7, you know, just ignore it. Play b into c5. Let him capture. I will capture. I will improve my queen's positioning. I will not give him control over the e5 square also. And maybe I will push e5, e4 also later. So white actually did that. He played queen d2, white played rook e7. Now why not rook a d8? He could have played rook a d8 also. Okay, nothing wrong in that. But maybe he was worried about this pin and something like this, maybe creating problems for him. His knight cannot really move. That's why Kamsky felt like rook e7 is better. White played b4. This was the right approach, trying to open up. c5. B into c5, knight into c5, queen a5, and then rook c8. Now what has happened is, after having this break, we were trying to prevent c5, we were trying to prevent all those important breaks. Now we have a c4 weakness to play with. Black has solved all these problems. His bishop is the better bishop. This knight no longer has those active outposts like e5, etc. in the position, and black's position is already like considerably fine or better here, even better sometimes, because at the moment, there are a lot of pieces on the board, so I would not say immediately better. There are a lot of tactical resources for white. But if you go look at it from a simple endgame perspective, or all these major pieces go off the board, then black's position is comfortable because he has control over everything which we need here, like black wants to do. He wants to not allow e5 outpost. He doesn't want a single outpost. He doesn't have d6 outpost. White doesn't have that. He doesn't have anything, and black's pawns are also pushing further, creating a pass pawn very soon. He has a weakness to play against also on c4 as a pawn, and it is also restricting black's play on that square. So black has done everything that helps him, and this important key move was f5. In different structures, different things work out, and here it was f5 that worked out fine because it was needed. It was the need of the hour. Otherwise, white would have played c5, and black would have been struggling with his bishop here on b7. But one thing we have learned is today, he can also play knight e5, by the way. Okay, if he plays queen e7, knight e5, this is also a way to restrict your bishops inside. But one thing we have learned for sure is, let's say queen c7, you should never possibly play b5. You should never play b5 and make a bad bishop here on b7. If possible, keep it as it is. Get yourself a weak pawn, lose that pawn, that's okay. I will sacrifice a pawn. At least my pieces will get something to do. If I just, let's say I just show you an example, okay? Rook a c1. Now I can take bc5, but if I have to do something else, right, I would rather sacrifice a pawn with this and get some play, maybe some counter play, or maybe even if I do this, queen into c6 and something like queen a5, knight e5. At least I don't have a dead bishop here on b7. I'm a pawn down, but I'm at least getting some play. I clearly don't want to play something like b5 and make my bishop on b7 a dead piece here. Okay. Now moving on next. Okay, again come through a different opening, again into a different structure, but transposing to the same kind of ideas. This time the bishop is on e2. e4, knight e4, d4, queen e4. Again, we have a similar Karukan structure. This time it is white who has the lead. So black has to be very cautious and has to be quick with his approach, because if he gets bishop on d3, that's a perfect setup for some tactical ideas. For example, black played knight f6 on the board. If he had played queen c7, bishop d3, knight f6, and queen h4. Now, what are the important things? Like, let's say black plays h6. What are the things that white should look at in this position? Can anybody tell me? We have everything. Like c5 is one of the things that white has in this, black has in this position. So what are the things that white can do here? Let's try to formulate your plans and ideas. d5 is one of them. Good. d5 is one of them. Tell me a few more. What are the things you are worried about? Knight g5 is very aggressive, but see, that is the thing. Knight g5, right, is a bad move, I would say, because first of all, he's not forced. He's not forced to capture. He can just ignore you and continue that side, and suddenly your knight on g5 looks like a fool. So that is one thing. And secondly, after h g5, you don't really, oops, my bad. Queen c7. Yeah, this is what we were looking at 6. Now knight g5, h g5, you don't really have anything after this also. You're unnecessarily sacrificing a piece, maybe allowing black to get some defense also on that side. too slow and not the best idea. If you're capturing something on g5, that would have been okay. But here, I don't think that is really working out that well. But the possible idea is taking control of his important plans like c5. If it's possible, I can think of c5 myself. That is also an idea. And we don't know if it's needed. Rook e1, just getting your pieces aligned. D5, also thinking of your opponent's point also. Okay, if you play c5, I have d5. That is what you should think of. Crashing through completely with queen h6, queen h7. So I don't need to worry too much about c5. I have time to regroup my pieces. Outpost. Looking at this, yes, good idea. But what if you play c5? I'm struggling now because I don't have d5 on the board. This is what you should try to avoid. You're trying to give him, you're allowing him to exchange pieces, and black will be able to equalize. So things you should avoid: look at your opponent's resources also, and then you can figure out your tactical resources. One more thing, we know a pattern here. Bishop h6 comes on the board. How about we do this and just play bishop into h6? It's an idea. Do we need to do it immediately? No, maybe not. Maybe you can get a rook in the game and then do that. Bishop h6. Maybe he plays c5, I immediately do this and I finish him that side. So we can use whatever ideas we have learned and try to implement them on the board correctly. So black played knight f6 immediately, but played still queen h4, and black played c5. And again, the timing of this move is very important. One lazy move, bishop d3, no longer c5 possible. It's over. So timing was very important. Black got c5 just in the nick of time. White played rook a d1, knight e4. Again, main goal to exchange pieces, and black played this game nicely and perfectly. Queen h4, remember this, okay? Queen h4, and he played c5 very immediately. Rook a d1 and knight e4, going for the exchange of the queens. So black has fulfilled all his important things that he wants to do. He's trying to exchange the queens, which white did in the game, voluntarily helping him there. He should have kept the queens on the board. So as white, you should try to keep the pieces on the board, either here, wherever it is. You try to keep pieces and try to generate an attack. As black, most likely you're happy with exchanging of pieces and entering the endgame, because it does help you equalize very easily. Outpost no longer there, c5 no longer there, and black has got his c5 also going immediately. Queen into d8 was a bad move because it's helping white. And then again, white did something which is very crazy. He tried to exchange more pieces here with knight d2. And although this is not losing, it is helping black. So white has played this position very wrongly, not in the spirit of what he should actually try to do. Keep more pieces, go for the attack. And we'll see how exactly things went wrong. Black found a nice move here. And what do you think black played in this position? Can anybody tell me? Black has already equalized, okay? Black is already comfortable here, but black did something even more and created further problems for white. Can anybody tell me what move black played out in this position? Bishop f4, but he will play rook d1 for that. So it doesn't really help us that much, right? Black is still fine and completely okay here. He may be even better in the end game, but not the best execution. He found something even better, and what he did is he used tactics to supplement his plan. Bishop e5 was the move. That's a very strong move here, which immediately created problems for white, because after rook f d1, now when he plays bishop f4, the rook is a little bit struggling to find good squares, because these two bishops are going to keep annoying it. Send it to the other side of the board. Now that bishop rook is not really useful there. Attack it even further, and white plays like this, then bishop g5. Let's just say we did it like this. Now we can see that we have achieved one thing, that is the rook is badly placed. We have an active threat, and possibly the rook belonged on the d file. It should have been there, tried to exchange itself and hold a position, but that did not work out well for him, and now possibly he is in big trouble here, because if he plays dc5, rook d1, and then rook d8 with the rook entering d2, black is completely better already. So white played rook c2, black played bishop e4, white played bishop d3, rook d3, and now again the next step. The rooks are badly placed. They are in pins. Just simply double up the rooks. No need to rush. G3, bishop E5, D5, bishop B2, rook B2, ED5, CD5, and king F8. Now, what has black achieved here? This onwards, here onwards, the endgame started. Black went on to win this game, but it was not technically a win. Again, rook endgames have come on the board, but black tried his best. White also chose some good resources after this, but in the end game, he somehow went wrong. Here, actually, in this position, ED5, everything has been played best only, but finally, if both the players play best, it will end in a draw anyways. You cannot really force your opponent to losing, right? But you gave your best. Here in this position, black is the one who is better and will try for a win. Like after king f8, he will fix the pawns and try to create problems for the d5 pawn, improve his king to the other side, and then push b5. All the endgame techniques will come into play here, how to continue. But that will not look at right now. What we're looking at is what white did and landed him in a position which is slightly worse. So where he could improve? First thing is, maybe he could have timed his moves better. And secondly, after this, when he played c5, white played rook 8 d1, knight e4. Definitely keep the queens on the board. Whether it's g5, whether it's h5 or g4 or h3, wherever possible. If it's possible, keep the queens on the board because that's the main idea here. You're looking for tactical resources and you're looking to use your pieces for some attacking ideas. That's one of White's main goal here in this structures. White is looking to create attacking and the attacking possibilities, and thus he opens with e4. He tries to create something on the board here, whereas black on the other hand is looking to neutralize the position and make it an easy endgame for him because he has not advanced too many pawns. He's trying to play a simple position, a simple endgame. This would have been the better choice. Black would have to play very accurately here. F5 is a very accurate move. Knight F6 is a very accurate blunder because after bishop F6 you tend to get mated here. So black has to play very accurately. G6 it doesn't look good to the eyesight, right? Queen h6 and then so many things, like it's just not looking good here. Sorry, bishop e4 and knight g5. You can already see that we are creating some problems here for black. So that's not a good side for black. That's why he tries to exchange the queens, neutralize the pieces, don't allow outposts, and try to equalize the position material and then make it easy for him. That is his idea. Okay, I will just show you last thing, that is my own game. Now this will be a little bit tactical in nature, but it's come from Karukan. I ended up losing this game. Oh shit. We'll show you the name later, guys. Anyways, I'll tell you the name. The name is this, but okay, it's not important. I'll put it in the description anyways. But I ended up losing this game, so we'll see what happened and what I went wrong. C6. Now I played some different. This is me playing white. I'm white in this. Knight f3, and I played some different line in the Karukan, but the structure and ideas, right, they stay the same. What are my ideas? I will highlight and show you. Bishop g4, h3, bishop h5, ed5, cd5, and bishop b5. Now this is a line, and here onwards you'll say like, what is this guy doing by weakening his position? But see, if I play and weaken my position, like I will try to exploit it in the quickest way possible. Like I'll try to get something from this without allowing. Like if I play g4 and I play d3 and I start castling, then basically my idea is flawed. I'm just going wrong. I'll have to rethink my g4 move. I will possibly not even go with bb5. I'll just keep my bishop here rather. It's very passive. It's not the best position, best structure, because my knight on c3 doesn't really belong here. It would be better to play d4 and c3, keep it like that, simple, symmetrical. But here I have already made some errors. I played h3. That's not a good idea to early play h3. I've told you that. Unnecessary weakening has been already done. I have to go with it. I have to go for something aggressive, and let's see what I did. Knight e5. Knight is pouncing immediately here. Black plays rook c8 to defend it. Out comes d4, centralizing it. e6. Queen e2. Now I have some ideas on this. So one of black's ideas here is to play f6 and get rid of this knight from here. And knowing knight gets rid of it. Outpost, it's too strong, get rid of it. That is black's idea. I play queen e2 to stop it. So if you play f6 now, knight g6 and I win the e6 pawn. That's the first idea here. Now black played bishop b4, pinning, developing. I went with bishop c6. Again, this is a line, and understanding it is important. I will just show you why I played it out. If I play something like h4 early, right, black plays knight e7 and defends this knight. First of all, now if I play this, he will happily capture, keep this c file open. He has put his rook on the c file. What do rooks need? Open files. What does black need? I have created weaknesses. What does black need with his two bishops? Exchanges. He wants to exchange pieces. So I'm aware of that. So I'm not going to do it this way. I played bishop c6, closed down his rook 5 for any possible tactical ideas on c3. Now I'm continuing with my idea with h4. He played knight e7, h5, bishop e4, and I played f3. Now, this was a little bit of a mistake here, and I went wrong here by playing f3. I misplayed it slightly. I should have castled with the strong threat of f3, and now the bishop is struggling here. Black will have to play something like f6 to get rid of it. I play knight into e4, d into e4. I have weakened the structure. All I need to do is come back. Now, what has happened here is, okay, I played this. You will say like I've castled on the king side. Again, see, dynamic play. It does work in sometimes some positions. Depends on black's positioning of pieces also. Imagine he has castled. His rooks are out in the open. He has already played c5. Will my idea work? Not really. It will not work in that position. But in this position, based on the opening, again, some of Engine's ideas have been used here, guys. But based like understanding is important. Why I did this? Like I'm going for something aggressive, but I understand his king is also in the center, and if he plays something like f5, let's say, I do get the e5 square for my knight. My pawn structure is not bad. My bishop can help come support my king. I can look for f3 and exploit his king in the center. I have ideas here, but is in fact already winning after something like f3. I'm playing a little bit dynamically. I'm not playing too passively. Yeah. See you next time, Rama. So black after f6, in this position, black, I played f3, he played f6, he played correctly. I played fe4, fe5, d into e5, opening up. Now the structure is not very Karukanish, but we played dynamically. We got into a bad position. I'm in a horrible position here because I made a big mistake here. And this is why, right, sometimes I'm explaining from my own perspective also. This line I have already prepared and I've checked it out with the engine. And what I did was I was also trying to remember which line it was. It was f3 or it was castle. And in that process, although I understand the position, in the process I made a small error here by playing the move f3 first before I play castle. This is all like, this is a prepared line, but I definitely made a big mistake. And one small mistake, right? If you don't understand why exactly, I prepared this line, but I've not played it before. I've not understood it completely. And from my own mistakes, you can also learn. Like, this is a big error here because I played f3 following, like, thinking of what I prepared at home, and then I make a big mistake here because after this I ended up in a completely lost position. After bishop c3, bc3, and queen a5, I have absolutely nothing now. My bishop is not going to anywhere useful. Queen a5 was not the best move. Sorry, castling was better. He made a blunder here, but he also tried to maybe do some remembering. But after this, my king is stuck in the center. I don't have control over any important squares. Bishop on a3 is getting d6, but like I've completely horribly weakened my king side, horribly weakened my queen side. Like I have nowhere to go. Knight is centralized. Knight is entering. I have nothing much left. My position is completely minus here. He made one small mistake, and small mistakes make a big impact. He played queen a5 here, which allowed me to immediately castle and keep his king in the center. Now this position is very dynamic. It's still not over. I'm better slightly though now, but I made mistakes after this also because I spent a little bit extra time, and under time trouble, I made big mistakes after this, which I'll show you. But my important point was here understanding why exactly you play the line and trying to utilize in the game. Don't try to remember all the engine moves. Try to understand that. That will help you quite a lot. Queen f2, he played queen h3. I played queen f4, king d7. Again, at first glance, it looks like white is struggling at the moment because the queen on h3 looks like it. But after precise play, I'm completely fine and okay. Rook f3 and here rook b1. Now, surprisingly, this queen is vulnerable in h4. You don't want to keep your queens on such squares. He's not able to play a move like a rook f8 in time because I have rook b7. Queen into f8 is a mate. And if he plays rook c7, of course, I will go ahead and capture this pawn. And I will bring my rook in between here. Right? Absolutely not. Of course, I will get queen g3 and I will allow a draw. So in dynamic positions, you have to be very alert and very precise. I cannot play rook f1. I have to move my king on top here. He captures, I will capture here and I'm winning the knight. And if he plays here, I'll move my king here. I have no more checks to worry about. Knight is under attack and I should be winning with the rook up. That would be very alert and precise. But I wasn't in this game. I did not play it very well. He played rook b8, rook b8. Now, in the back of my head, I knew that I was definitely better and winning, but The execution just did not come in perfectly and precisely. I played some best moves here. ED5 was a good move. Queen f7, knight e7, and I'm winning now. Rook d7, king c7. Because of this very weakly placed knight, it doesn't look very obvious, but after g5, I should be winning this game here, okay? Just that I forgot about one move. Now, I had spent a lot of time. I forgot about one defensive resource. I calculated everything to do with queen g4, queen f2, king h2. I calculated everything here. I forgot that he can indeed defend like this. The problem here is I have absolutely no time on the clock. I'm very low on time. So instead of playing something like bishop a3 in this position, actually he played queen e1 check, actually, to be honest. He played queen e1. He made my life a little bit easy here. I played rook h3 and then he played queen b4, correct. Now here, actually, instead of playing something like c3 and keeping everything at bay, what I chose is a wrong choice. I played a3. So you should try to choose moves which will not create any weaknesses and immediately exploit you. I played a3 here, and this make a big impact and a difference, because first of all, I killed off that a3 square for my bishop, and secondly, we'll see what happened in the game, how I ended up losing this. Now, in the back of my mind, I was in that zone where I was, winning completely, but uh, and I was still there. I was still there, like I was going to win this, but I've killed up the most important possibility, and now there is very little chance that I can win this because I cannot really get rid of this queen. So I played bishop d2 to try to get here. He played rook b1. That's a blunder, actually. He should have just played rook d8 and just solidified here, because I cannot go check. He just plays this or he plays this check. The dynamic play, this is what is the problem. So if you don't understand what you're doing, you can go wrong. But here it was because of time that I went wrong. He played rook b1, small threat here. Of course, I took care of it with rook g3. He played king b8 and tried to escape. And here onwards, the funny part, like I played a very bad this because I completely underestimated white's ideas. Bishop b4 and forgot about white's simple patterns that he can utilize. Queen and queen d5, and he has a mating threat here. I played queen d8 and coolly went ahead and captured, thinking that okay, this mate threat I will somehow defend later. But after king a6, I have no check. There is a mate threat here, and I cannot really take care of it in any possible way. Like rook g2, it is completely disgusting after having a winning position. This guy just played queen e4, and I just resigned because there is absolutely nothing I can do. I run away here, I'm getting mated. I do something like rook g2. What I did in the game, he plays here, he just plays here. Again, enforcing this idea. No escape whatsoever. Finally, I do this, I play get mated here. So here I ended up resigning. But the point was not here. Like, this game was interesting. I ended up losing this game, messing it up somehow. Actually, I had many chances to make it better, but my point was right here. When you're playing out these lines of engines, right, try to understand what you're doing, what are the main goals in the position, and it will become very easy. If you're even learning from engines perspective, you're looking at engines, right, try to understand. That is the most important thing I focus on. I tried to remember and play f3 where I went wrong, because got myself into a bad position pretty quickly here. If you had castled, I was already minus completely. If I had castled, I would have got f3 nicely with the same kind of position, but with castle on the board, it would have made a big difference in this position. Anyways, we will, anyways, like if we not really cover all the structures, we will definitely make videos on it, guys, so that we'll highlight the most. I will highlight the most important points from some opening plans, etc. We don't complete it in the series, but hopefully you're enjoying it. If you'll do, then definitely hit the like button and subscribe to our channel if you feel like it. If you do enjoy the content, check out other content too. We'll be coming out with more also as we go along. So if you enjoyed it, then hit the like button and tune in tomorrow at 7 p.m. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you a lot. Thanks a lot for tuning in today, and goodbye.